Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Your Spiritual Journey. This is Dr. Bob, and this is the space and the place where we talk about things that are important to your soul. Today's guest, well, I got to say, I'm really excited that she's with us today. Sarah Silk is a local Pittsburgh artist with a range of depth and experience. All of Sarah's endeavors are practices in questioning social norms. Better watch out for her.
That's right.
Becoming more aware of oneself and finding kind and compassionate forms of expression. She is a movement teacher, primarily teaching the Feldenkrais method of somatic education. And we'll get into some of those terms later, as well as a theater actor and a fiber artist. Her formal education includes a degree in philosophy from the University of Chicago, an MFA in acting from Rutgers University, and comprehensive professional certifications in Pilates, yoga, myofascial release in the Barnes method, and we'll have her explain that one, and Feldenkrais, which is how I came across her. Her informal education includes knitting, sewing, gardening, design, and a variety of therapeutic and mindfulness practices, including nonviolent communication and internal family systems. Sarah's appeared many times in Pittsburgh theatrical stages to great reviews. As a sustainable fiber artist, she collaborates with her mother, Louise Silk, who is a prolific Pittsburgh artist. They created SilkDDenim, and you'll hear more about that too, over a decade ago. As SilkDDenim, they deconstruct used clothing by hand and remake the 100% recycled materials into individually crafted objects ranging from quilts and home goods to garments and bags. SilkDDenim is a response to one-time use plastics and unsustainable fast fashion. She is also a member of the initiative called the Rustbelt Fibershed, which is a bio-regional textile community growing hope and resilience through local fiber, local color, and local labor. Sarah is the only Feldenkrais practitioner in the Pittsburgh area, and she teaches a weekly class called Awareness Through Movement at the Wilkins School Community Center. She is currently continuing her study of the Feldenkrais method in an advanced mentorship program at the Field Center for Children's Integrated Development in New York City. There she studies Feldenkrais principles of development and applies them to practicing with infants and children with disabilities. You can learn more about her work as a Feldenkrais teacher at feldenkraispittsburgh.com. And do I really want to spell this for you, audience? I don't think I'm going to bother spelling it.
Do you want me to spell it?
It will be on my website.
Okay.
So you'll be able to see all the spellings.
Yeah.
And related information at yourspiritualjourneypodcast.com.
Oh.
But now I'd like to turn the mic over to Sarah because she's going to tell us her spiritual journey story.
Wow.
From childhood to the present day.
OMG.
And then we'll get into some of this more than or less than easy vocabulary. So,
right, Feldenkrais.
You're up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Thanks for that intro, Bob.
Well, you're an actress, so I'm expecting a lot of emoting.
Yeah. I mean, what came first, the chicken or the egg for me? I think I was always pretty emotional and expressive, so I had to choose acting just to get it out. But yeah, wow, it is so great to be here. Thanks for having me. I've never, ever had anyone ask me about my spiritual journey before, other than, in my intimate relationships. And,
Okay.
so this will be a real new and exciting challenge for me.
Well, looking at your background, as extensive as it is, I expected gray hair and an older woman, I must say.
Well, yeah, it's interesting to be 40 years old and to reflect upon my spiritual journey and to be like, wow, a lot has happened in a short amount of time that I didn't plan for, that just came this way. Like, I didn't even really identify as a spiritual person overtly until kind of recently, in the same way that, like, it took me a long time to say I'm an artist. These are things that I had to learn to own about myself as I learned about myself over time. So yeah, in a way, I feel like my spiritual journey is just beginning. But it certainly, like any human, began at birth or before, who knows. But yeah. So I mean, my spirituality is certainly a mishmash of a lot of stuff. And I kind of see it as, for myself, looking for meaning, looking to live a good life, looking to make the most of this life. And that's certainly, kind of the gist of it. And as I said, it's still in process. I'm,
Well,
so
for all
of us, right? So even just trying to look back and delineate and clarify what it has been is a real challenge. But certainly I've had a lot of different influences, and I'm starting to be able to tease out the themes now at age 40. But one of the most important influences, I'd say that the three most important influences, although there have been many, are, my personal family life and my personal life, especially with my mom, who is one of my gurus. She is a spiritual artist as well, and I work with her and I learn from her, and she has been a huge influence on me. And being an actor has been a big part of my journey, and being a Feldenkrais teacher, which I came across by chance, and lucky me. And so those things, along with some therapeutic practices, have all come together to sort of become my practices. I have a big toolbox of practices, but they all sort of, I'm trying to tease out the themes of them for you, really. Just for you, even though I've been wanting to do it for myself for some time, and I'm still, working on that.
I forced you to do
You
this.
forced me to do this, and it's like last night I'm like writing in my notebook being like, oh my God, how am I going to make sense of this? But there certainly are themes, and that's what's interesting about all these seemingly, eclectic, disparate things. They have real themes for me personally. And I'm still trying to tease them out, but for the purposes of today, I'll give it my best shot. I mean, so for me, like, living my best life, living a life of purpose and meaning, is about trying to live in accordance with my values, right? Matching my actions, behaviors with my intentions.
But is this building on some experience from childhood? Like, did you have a church life?
Well, no.
What happened?
Well, I would say
childhood?
that my spirituality has only really been clarified recently, and actually, the themes that I've teased out started in childhood in some ways, but mostly they're part of my adult life. So, the themes really came out little by little. So the themes, my values, the themes of my practices are about being present in the moment to moment truth is like a theme from the Meisner technique, which is an acting technique that I've studied. And that truth, looking at truth as a value, is also about observational, sort of almost scientific experimentation, which is about sort of looking at, observing what is, rather than, and trying to differentiate that from projecting ideas or ego or suffering onto reality. Yeah. And then there's also a theme of non-normative thinking. So again, not judging, non-judgmental. And then that kind of, all these themes kind of translate into each other, and they're even hard to tease out, but they're all related. So non-judgment starts to get into non-violence, which is another part, another theme of the work that I do. And that has to do with, that plays out in a lot of different ways. It can be just about not force, about kindness. It can be also about, for me, it's about aligning with the ways of the world, sustainability, nature. And then all of that kind of comes together with a sort of personal growth, personal curiosity, personal learning. So learning, self-awareness, these are really like the gist of it for me. So these themes have all been teased out. And so, yeah, you go all the way back, childhood. I mean, I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the city, in a liberal Jewish household, you know, a kid of baby boomers, kind of latchkey, third child, sort of, I definitely had a Jewish upbringing, but I wouldn't say it was religious. I would say it was more cultural, you know, and, but things started to change more as after my parents got divorced. My mom.
What age were you when that happened?
I was in middle school.
Okay.
I was in 7th grade. It was a very dark time in my life, actually, and it was really the first time I ever experienced depression. And, you know, some of my mental health challenges have also been a major part of my spiritual journey.
Well, middle school's a challenge to begin with.
It sure
without adding more trauma on top of it.
It sure is. And I definitely, I grew up a sensitive artist type. I always wanted to be an artist from, you know, age 6, 7. I knew I wanted to be an artist always. And I was always, emotional, third child sensitive person. So, you know, come middle school when my parents are divorced, I'm already interested actually in all the things I do today. I was already interested in fashion. I was already interested in theater. I was already interested in art. And then I was already kind of like a very curious, I was interested in the occult as well. I mean, like, you know, looking at palm reading books and things like that as a little girl. But so my parents got divorced, and my mom really started her journey of self-discovery at that point, and started really, she became a feminist. She was already a feminist, you know, in the second wave of feminism, but she started sort of changing her, adopting a more feminist point of view and relearning Judaism through that lens. And that really resonated with me, and I watched that, and I was always playing alongside her, observing her, learning from her my whole life. And she started to also get into Buddhism. She met an actor at the stage door of a Broadway show that while we were on a trip to New York City, and started dating him. And he was a practicing Zen Buddhist, and she became a Buddhist as well. And I learned a lot about Buddhism, and I have like lots of memories too of learning about spirituality through her. Like I have a vague memory of being on a road trip with her and listening to a Carolyn Miss audiobook. And this is at a very young age. So like I'm already like exposed to spirituality very young. And she also got into Kabbalah. She studied Kabbalistic healing in New Jersey, and like all of her influences have definitely affected me. And actually during COVID, I started studying Kabbalah with her and my stepdad and my stepsister. So anyway, so then, so fast forward. So middle school, divorce, my mom's an artist. I want to be an actor, but I'm also very studious and very interested in academia. And so I decided to go to college, even though I wanted to be an actor, to get a degree. And I studied philosophy. And this is another huge influence in my spiritual journey. And I loved it. I mean, I really got into it. I had my first conscious existential crisis.
Okay. Favorite philosophers?
Ooh, Nietzsche, Sartre, Simone de Beauvoir. I mean, these were some of the people I was studying at the time. And it was mind blowing, and even just the idea of what is truth, how do you know it? These were big questions I was asking myself.
Sure.
Studying also sociology, being exposed to the world for the first time, having lived a pretty sheltered life in my Pittsburgh Jewish enclave, was also mind blowing, and just being exposed to a different city, a different cultures, was really, really great for me, and I really wanted that, and I really pursued that. So then I moved to New York City after that to be an actor, to pursue my dreams of being an actor. And wow, that was just a crazy experience in of itself, also exposing myself to life in New York City, and the entertainment industry. And really I began to have to find my way. And that was really hard. And all of my assumptions and values were questioned immediately.
Yeah.
And
Does that mean you were a waitress in New York? Wow.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I'm a server. I'm trying to figure out how to get auditions and an agent, and I'm like, oh my God, this is totally unsustainable. This is crazy. I'm also very sensitive. I'm just trying to make sense of what's going on. So quickly I was like, there's no way I'm going to be a server for the next 10 years. So I became a Pilates instructor. And I also realized that while I had much talent, I did not have much skill, and I never had my acting education, and I love education and schooling, so I decided I need to get into some acting school, and I started a conservatory, which was an amazing conservatory. I was very lucky that I found that. It's called The Studio, and it used to be the Actor Center Conservatory, and there I found my first exposure to Feldenkrais through a movement teacher. So studying movement as an actor was fascinating, and it was always some of my favorite stuff. It was always about, when you're an actor, you study movement, voice, and acting. Those are kind of your basic classes. And movement was always the most freeing for me. It was like where I could be the least self-conscious and the most free, and where I sort of learned the most. And also in that conservatory, I began studying the lucid body with Faye Simpson, which is another technique that introduced me to the chakras and using the chakras to act. Actually, so
wow,
it was. I mean, she's really cool. Yeah, I mean, so I was really cool stuff, and I loved it so much. I was like, I gotta get an MFA. This is like too interesting. I gotta go further, so I got an MFA, and that was a hard decision for me. I was in a relationship, and choosing to go back to school and blah blah blah. So all along the way, I'm making difficult decisions, trying to stay living life according to my values, learning, growing. Anyway, so I go to Rutgers, and also.
But did you stay living in New York while you were going to Rutgers?
No, so I moved to New Jersey, which was another thing for me because I got to finally live a more relaxed.
Yeah.
In a more it was not relaxing at all. No. Like being a graduate school for acting, I actually like to tell people that graduate school for acting was like the Army meets Project Runway meets act. I mean, it was traumatizing for me, actually. It was really hard. I also, though, learned a lot, and I got so many skills. But it was really, really, really hard. And it was like 24/7, work. And a lot of questioning of who I am and how I appear to other people and how do I act. It was really, really tough. But I definitely got all these amazing skills. It was at the sacrifice of my mental wellness at the time, but I survived. And I have since healed all of these wounds from then, but it took a long time. And I think I've learned that in a lot of my trainings is that people are people, and teachers can abuse their power, and that is a rude awakening. I've had a lot of rude awakenings throughout my journey of teachers abusing their power, and having to learn how to move on and heal from that. So in my MFA, I really though learned amazing skills, and looking back, I learned really how to be an actor, which was priceless and worth it. And looking as a Feldenkrais teacher now, I see the themes. They come up now in ways that I didn't even realize then. Like Like, and I see now acting as a beautiful metaphor for learning how to be a good person or learning how to live a good life. And, you know, all those skills apply in terms of becoming aware of oneself and trying to, you know, do the work, but be present with whatever's truly coming up in the moment, rather than trying to force something, play at something. You know, a lot of good acting, which is very rare and very hard to find and see, is about like not putting on some idea of what you think something is or should be, but instead being, just being it. I mean, you do a lot of preparation and scene analysis, and that all of those analyses also are part of the process in terms of figuring out what your intentions, your objective, your relationship, the circumstances of the person, and also just empathy in general, the idea that each and every person has in them each and every person, that I can play anyone, and that's in me.
Because we're all one.
Yeah,
right?
we're all one. So, I mean, it's truly mind-blowing to spend 3 years with a group of people experimenting in that notion, and seeing people reveal parts of themselves. I mean, you still are you. You can't, I'm not all the people I play, but there are parts of me that relate to those parts, but they're very individualized. Each and every person is still a snowflake. So there's like, you know, some absurdity in there, but that's, I mean, part of the process. Okay, so I get an MFA. I know, it's like, how do I even tell this story in a short time? But anyway, let's see if I can. Okay, so I get an MFA. I move back to New York City, and I'm ready, I'm skilled, and I'm ready to pursue acting. And boy, was that, it's like I learned too much already, and I became too close to myself, that it was just really unsatisfying and difficult for me. I did try my best, and I started nailing auditions. I felt really good about my work, and I got some jobs, but it was just really hard, and I really didn't enjoy it. And that was a real rude awakening. And I kind of hit a tipping point where I was just mentally taxed, and I was like, I kind of broke down, and I also was like becoming very aware of gentrification and just sort of the intensity of like New York City commercialized life, and sort of all the absurdities of the rich and the poor, and it was, my sensitive soul was just overwhelmed, frankly. And I just, it wasn't for me. Now, at the time, I was really just having a crisis, a major crisis. What am I going to do? I always thought I want to be an actor. I want to be on Broadway. I want to play Maggie the Cat. I want to do Shakespeare. How am I going to, I can't do that unless I stay in New York City, but I don't want to be in New York. What am I going to do? So I spent about a year going back and forth between New Jersey, New York, Pittsburgh. My mom came and rescued me and took all my stuff in 2 cars. Like, my mom's always rescuing me. She is my true angel guru. But eventually I made the choice to leave, and I didn't make that choice lightly. And it was the best choice I ever made.
Well, if it's not fun, why do it? You know?
Yeah. And so I really thought about it too. I was like, what am I doing here? This is my life.
Yeah.
I decided fame and fortune was not what I was after, and that I could act in Pittsburgh and I could figure it out, you know? And that was great, because as soon as I moved back to Pittsburgh, wow, things really started to gel for me. That was about 10 years ago. And I got to play some of the best roles I've ever played. There were 3 parts that I got here in Pittsburgh that were life-changing lead roles, including playing Rose in The Flick at the Pittsburgh Playhouse, and playing an autistic woman at Off the Wall in a play called Scared of Sarah. And my sister is autistic, and I began the process of also healing my relationship with her and my family. And I started going to therapy, and I started really just healing myself little by little over time, kind of like partially intentionally, but partially just like having enough mental and physical space to kind of realize that I did have some mental challenges that I needed to address if I wanted to be happy, including, depression, anxiety, an eating disorder, and relationships to mend. I started going to family therapy too, which was great, and starting to learn how to interact with my family not by changing them, but by changing me, which was, and I started getting really into self-therapy too. So that's when I started getting exposed to nonviolent communication and more recently internal family systems. And then, I forgot to tell you. So all through this time, I was having extreme back pain on and off, chronic back pain. And it really started in my training as an actor. And I really think it was a combination of some of my Pilates habits, actually, trying to force myself to be a good postural person, mixed with stress, mixed with the training of an actor, feeling like, trying to force myself to also be a good actor, and sort of like the over-efforting involved in that. But so that was, and it would come out like when I was doing a play or when things were really stressful, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so I had chronic back pain on and off for 10 years. And finally, a few years into my time in Pittsburgh, I was like, I tried everything, including PT, all the things that people try when they try back pain or when they have back pain. And then finally I remembered Sita, my movement teacher, and Feldenkrais. And I had this image of her work and sort of feeling that lightness of working with the skeletal structures instead of the muscles. Also, I had a recommendation for a physical therapist in myofascial release, which is specifically in the Barnes method because this is a non-forceful method version of myofascial release. So those two things combined together, I started practicing them, and they healed my back pain entirely over the course of a couple of years. But the Feldenkrais spoke to my soul in a way that I just knew right away that, wow, this was something I needed to pursue.
But there were no teachers in Pittsburgh at the time, so
Zero.
How did you do this?
I went online and I bought some audio lessons. And this is part of why I love Feldenkrais. And actually anything that I love, I believe it needs to be accessible to all people affordably. So like if you need to pay for a guru and training, it's not accessible. I mean, yes, you can make things work, but you can just buy some audio lessons online and start practicing at home in your living room right away on a floor. I mean, I guess it's not truly accessible to all people. I was actually just thinking about how do deaf people do ATM, awareness through movement, and if you are in a lot of pain, but the truth is that there's the hearing part of it, but I guess you could read it, but there's the method in itself can be done just in your imagination, but I guess we'll get into that. But so in my mind, it's maybe not perfectly accessible to all, but it seemed like a lot more accessible than sort of just like relying on a doctor or a PT or, it was already empowering in that way. And that I like to say it's teaching someone, like the Chinese proverb, teaching someone how to fish rather than giving you a fish, right?
Yeah.
So Feldenkrais is really looking at the source of movement, how you move, rather than the problem. Fixing the problem. Yeah. And so it actually is really about the mindset of movement and kind of the neuroscience of it mixed with the biology of it. And but so those things are really it's like a human right, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think it also teaches patience.
Yes.
Because it's so slow.
So slow. It teaches so many skills. Yeah. And so in some ways it's not accessible to everybody because a lot of people are not ready for that kind of slowness or that kind of attention. And that's very challenging. It's a very challenging practice. But the truth is that you can feel benefits of it right away. And I did right away, even though it's not a quick fix, but it can feel amazing right away. But over time, it really is miraculous how it works. So I I had to, so I was just doing audio lessons on that I bought on my computer on the internet. And I loved it so much that I decided I was going to travel back and forth from Pittsburgh to New York City to do a training program. And so the training programs are really intensive. They're all about 4 years of intensive study. And you don't become a Feldenkrais teacher easily.
Oh. Which is why there aren't a whole lot of them available.
It's true. They really try to keep the method authentic, which I very much respect. Is very important, yoga. And having been a certified yoga teacher, Pilates instructor, like these things do get watered down. They do get turned into commercialized versions of themselves. And so to keep the method authentic, I respect that, even though that's not easy to do.
Well, my Qigong teacher, Laura Buddy, who's been on this program a couple times now, recommended it highly to me.
Oh.
And just said, you're a marvelous teacher, and she really enjoyed it.
That's great. That's so nice to hear. Yeah, so I did it. I mean, I also, the end of my training coincided with the beginning of COVID, and it actually took me 6 years to graduate because of COVID. I only graduated about a year and a half ago, but I've been teaching, the group, there's the group method and the one-on-one method, and I've been teaching the group method for many years now, because that only took 2 years to get certified in. But yeah, I mean, also I started, a lot of things started changing also in my life. Like I started gardening. I started getting into fiber art with my mom. I started getting into naturalism with the Fibershed. And I started also really getting into nonviolent communication. I have a nonviolent communication practice group that I meet with every week. And I just started seeing how all of these things came together for me. Yeah, I think you would. Have you heard of nonviolent? I think you would love it.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
In fact, somebody else I interviewed on this program, who's a good friend, Bill Vanderveer, often had nonviolent communication meetings at his house.
Oh yeah.
And there's a pretty good group in Pittsburgh into nonviolence.
Yeah. And they are at the Homewood Library, right? On one Saturday a month, I think. Yeah. I have looked into that and met with them a little bit. And I think that it's interesting the way NVC, nonviolent communication, IFS, internal family systems, Feldenkrais, these are all Jewish men also, it turns out. These are all Jewish, which was like, I didn't do that on purpose, but it's very interesting to me. And then also acting, so all these things kind of came together and sort of led to my spiritual journey. I also, used these things personally for my life, not just to heal my back pain, which it has done, but then to grow beyond that, also healing some of my mental challenges, and even just in the last, I would say year and a half, things have really finally gotten to a point where I feel like, whoa, I can really use these things and thrive rather than just survive. And, but it took a lot of work and a lot of self-reflection, and it hasn't been easy, but it's been totally worth it. Like all the, I was just talking with my partner about how, and anything truly authentic and meaningful is worth fighting for. It's worth that struggle.
Well, that's the purpose of this incarnation, is to work through things and grow from that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and how amazing.
Good job,
Thank
Sarah.
you. Thanks, Mom. I really appreciate that. Okay, I think I did it. That was the gist of it. Woo. How'd I do?
Just great.
Okay.
I can just feel your energy. You just exude that energy. That's love. There's love in the room.
Thank you.
So, thank you. So, if you're sort of finished with your narrative,
I think so.
Let me get.
I could do. I could. Yes,
get to some things that the audience would like clarified.
Okay.
I just have this. I'm so tuned into my audience. I know what their questions would be.
Hello, audience.
So let's talk about somatic education.
Ooh.
Because that's how you describe this method that you teach.
Yeah.
So what is somatic education?
Ooh, good question. Soma is body. Somatic education, I would say that that's the study of oneself through one's body.
Okay.
So a somatic education is learning about yourself and life, but through your physical presence.
Aha. All right. Great. Now,
Yeah.
my wife and I run a spiritual group that's based on the book, The Energy Codes. And it's written by Sue Morter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all about taking it to the body.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, figuring out where the blockages are, where the issues are in your body, and transmuting those.
Yeah.
And really living your best life by understanding your body and what's going on there.
Yeah, we have this foolish notion that it's separate from ourselves. But it's all one, as you said.
Yeah.
And so in a way, the idea is that the body is always like the quickest way into the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so like if you can tune in with your body, your sensations, your feelings, the nowness, you get it. You're already in touch with what is.
Yeah.
And so it will be revealed to you inevitably. Well, yeah, what's your challenge? Where's your pain? Where's all the things?
Yeah.
Yeah, the answers are there already for you. You don't need to know or understand them. They can just be felt.
Yeah. No, I get that. Early in my spiritual development, I came across the concept of we are not our bodies. And understanding that we are a soul within a body. And so at first I thought, okay, my focus and my concentration will be on soul growth and ascension and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Then learning Reiki, understanding that with the chakra system, if you're not into that root chakra and you're not grounded, all this stuff up here isn't really gonna keep you together. You need a balance.
Right.
So then with studying the energy codes and getting a sense of, okay, where in the body are these things, and Reiki helping me figure out where in the body are these things and what's that about.
Yeah.
Coming to realize that we are not our body in the sense that that's not all we are.
Totally.
But we are both mind, body, and soul.
Yes.
Both. There's three things
Yeah.
there. And, once you figure out, okay, that's who I am, then how do I integrate all that and make it all work together?
Right.
And the work you do with Feldenkrais is just, from what I read, I haven't tried it yet, is just amazing. So that's somatic education.
In a nutshell.
All right, so the people pretty much understand Pilates. Well, can you give us, when I say understand Pilates, what's to understand?
Well, I'm very confused about Pilates nowadays because
okay.
I don't really practice it right now.
Right.
I actually started backing off on my yoga practice a bit too because I'm so developing my Feldenkrais viewpoint that it's hard to sort of merge them. But Pilates is much more of a muscle conditioning process, but through awareness. So it was the first time I was asked to think about how to try to observe what I'm doing and try to match it with an intention. So, learning the spine roll up, which is an essential movement, but the Pilates is really a series of exercises to condition the muscles. But I have since given up the idea of conditioning my muscles. And the exercises that I now do are for my joy and pleasure. And sort of, I kind of use I'm trying to transition from a world in which I'm trying to be fit and healthy and hot to a world in which I feel and sense my wellness. And so it's very hard. It's a very it's a long journey there. Yeah. And so sometimes Pilates confuses that. Yeah. And sometimes exercise confuses that for me. I still, I'm still also, because I'm studying Feldenkrais so intensely, it might be easier for someone who isn't in as deep a study as I am. But, so my exercise now is really like a combination of walking, hiking, running, dancing, sort of yoga-esque things and calisthenics. And I still like to try to do handstands and headstands and all the things that I enjoy. Yeah. But it's very much limited to what feels sustainable. And most of these things I've found for me personally are not yet very sustainable. Like I can't even run that often or that hard because I can feel that I'm putting my body at risk in a way that I couldn't feel when I was younger. When I was younger, I was like, push through it. Yeah, you can do it. And it's just like the opposite of what I'm doing now. So Pilates is not, I mean, I can't say I'm the expert on, a lot of Pilates instructors have transformed and modernized it to be a lot more about function and awareness. And I do love Pilates for that. And it really does help a lot of people with their back pain. But honestly, a lot of people talk to me about Pilates and I'm like, I don't really tell them the truth, which is that like, I just don't do it anymore. That's kind of the gist of it. But I hope to return. Like actually, I was just looking at a reformer in the window the other day, which is a Pilates machine. And I was like, I really want to do some Pilates. So, but it's just, if you saw my bio, like, there's only so much time in the day too. I'm going to get out in Frick Park and I'm going to do some ATM and then there's no more time.
Well, yoga is something that I've intentionally avoided, but as I've gotten into Sue Morter's work and this book on the energy codes, at the end of each chapter, she has yoga postures that complement what she's saying and supplement it. And she's got videos that demonstrate it. And, one of the big things, not just with yoga, but with Qigong. Now, Qigong's something I do every morning. It's don't push yourself.
Don't push yourself.
Do what feels right and feels good. And if it doesn't work in this posture, do it from a chair.
Totally. Adapt, modify all the time, do less.
And I really appreciate that because it isn't that push through it thing. It's
don't force.
Yeah, do what your body, listen to your body and do what your body accepts and experiences with joy rather than pain.
That is Feldenkrais in a nutshell. That is my philosophy in a nutshell. Yeah. And that is what I teach people how to I teach people how to sense and feel themselves. Yeah. So that is for the purpose of doing what is sustainable and realistic for them in any given moment. Yeah. And so, I think everyone should be doing all the activities that they personally want to do, but in order to do them sustainably, they have to listen for when they're pushing beyond their realm of ease and capabilities. And so, do yoga, but modify. Yeah. Do it slowly.
I'm still not, I can't say I do yoga yet. Yeah. But I'm looking at
yoga is the practice of stilling the mind. Yeah. So you probably do. I bet you do.
Yeah. It's a spiritual practice.
It sure is.
Not anything else. Okay, so let's then work into, because before meeting you in person today for the first time, I did catch a video of you and your mother, and it is just such a joy to see that as you introduce silk denim. Uh, so that's something that interests me a lot. One of my very early interviews was with this author.
I'm so glad I took a
Book
picture of all these books.
This is Patricia DeMarco's book
Oh.
on sustainability,
Ooh.
and it's a fascinating read.
A global perspective from
Yes.
Pittsburgh.
Yes, it's just
Ooh.
fascinating. She's a good friend of mine and
Very cool.
a fellow
Ooh, and she
Rutgerian,
signed
but
it?
yeah.
Oh my God, I can't wait to look at this.
But I highly recommend it to people who are interested in sustainability.
Yes.
Uh,
I don't know. Okay, that's really cool. I definitely want to read that.
No, she's amazing. She's got another book out, In the Footsteps of Rachel Carson.
Yes, Rachel Carson.
Yeah.
Also one of my huge influences.
Okay.
Yeah. And I feel so lucky, to have like Pittsburgh represent that kind of point of view. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Patty was sort of in charge of the Rachel Carson homestead for years.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. She's got a third book out now. I wish I could plug that, but I'm not sure what the title is.
Oh.
Anyway, moving on to you. So talk a little bit about silk denim and how that got started and how that fits into this journey.
Yeah. Well, when I moved back to Pittsburgh, I was like, my mom's super cool. I got to learn some of her skills. I got to sew. And I always loved sewing and craft anyway. I always played alongside her and learned stuff. And so I started, also, when I was in New York, I was looking for extra income. And I came up with the idea of a cool, reusable grocery bag made out of jeans, made out of recycled jeans, because I wanted something that was cooler than those sort of polyester fabric ones that you get at the grocery store. And I was always schlepping around a lot of stuff in New York City. And really just, I started making a few things that I wanted with her help. And we started working with also the T-shirt leftovers from her memory quilt commissions. And then we just started meeting twice a week because the things that we made for ourselves were so cool that we just had to keep making more. And I actually gave a really good talk about silk denim at the Rustbelt Fibershed symposium, so it's hard for me to summarize quickly, but basically we just were so happy with the things we made and the ideas behind them of reuse of clothing materials, that it just snowballed. It snowballed, and we made an Etsy store, and we made a website, and then opportunities just kept coming. Like friends wanted things, or and we also just kept questioning our own individual lifestyle choices and how we could become more sustainable and making products for ourselves that were, we thought were so fun as an idea also to sort of tell people, you need a water bottle and you're going to hold it hands-free and you can blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so it just sort of snowballed from there and started also, I'd always been interested in fashion since I was a little girl, and I always felt like, I'm going to choose acting because it feels somehow more ethical. Not that it was, but I never knew how to be an ethical fashion designer. I felt like the fashion world always made me feel worse about myself rather than better. And so I felt like I couldn't really engage with it in an ethical way. And it just so happened that I kind of became a sustainable fashion designer by chance, not even planning it, just kind of trying to make things that, I was never a tailor, so I started kind of making oversized things, but also it fit my aesthetic and my vibe, and that I kind of was saying an F you to fashion because I wanted things that also expressed my dissatisfaction with fashion and gender and all kinds of things in the world. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And I realized we were making art, and I learned how to make quilts, and I learned how to do this. And then we got approached by the Rustbelt Fibershed to be listed on their website. And then I got really into the farm to fiber movement over the last, 4 or 5 years or so. And it's just been a really, really, really awesome thing.
So you're raising sheep now?
That's what I want. I'm like, oh my God, they're so cute. I want to raise sheep and alpaca and mohair rabbits. And when am I going to move to a farm? But yeah, for now, it's very overwhelming. Like I know how to sew and knit and design, but I want to learn to spin. I want to learn to dye. I want to learn to weave. And I'm always doing the initiatives of the 1 Year, 1 Outfit initiative with the Rustbelt Fibershed. I'm trying to make clothing from locally sourced products, which is very, very, very difficult because there's no local fabric being made. But there are local farmers and local fibers. And I'm growing flax in my garden, and I'm trying to learn how to process it into flax yarn. But it's like a lifetime of skills I'm trying to learn. So it's sort of...
Yeah. Have you worked with bamboo yet? Or
that's another... Oh my God. So part of my journey of becoming a naturalist was I moved into a house that was abutting a Japanese knotweed city forest. And Japanese knotweed is a invasive bamboo or whatever, invasive.
I know.
And anyway, being a naturalist, first of all, I was living in New York City, and I grew up very non-naturalist urban Jewish girl, so I had no idea what I was getting into, but immediately I was like,
so where's this house?
It is in Swissvale, and Swissvale, Swiss Home Park, and I got really into. I have since planted dozens and dozens of trees, and I manage a sort of border with the knotweed, and I get really into the knotweed. And so, actually, any kind of fibers that can be made into fabric, I'm very interested in. But bamboo, it turns out, requires a lot of chemical processes to be made into fabric, but maybe not. I still haven't gotten it, but one of my fantasies has always been to turn Japanese knotweed into amazing fabric, but I have not gotten that far at all yet. That's just a dream that I dream big. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but for now I'm just sort of maintaining borders with the Japanese knotweed and some trees. But I got really into gardening through that. And I always sort of, when I moved to Pittsburgh, I wanted to have a garden, but I bit off way more than I can chew. And for a while, it was a little bit of a crazy making. But after so much time, it's one of the things that I feel like I'm most self-taught in. I got really into it, and I started to really learn about plants and nature and permaculture, sustainable gardening. I mean, I got so into it, I could easily design a sustainable landscape for somebody who could afford that. But I spend a lot of time in my garden, and I'm always questioning how much time I can spend in it so I can spend more.
Yeah. So are you able to keep the deer out of it?
No.
Okay.
The deer run my garden. Every year it's like, oh my God, I need to build a better fence. I build the worst fence in the first year or the 5th year or whatever. The deer eat everything. The rabbits eat everything. It's pretty funny, actually. It's amazing how many things have died, but also how many things have survived. So more and more I just plant things that they're not as attracted to, but I'm really trying hard to keep those hydrangeas alive. I finally got a really good spray last year, so I do spray them. I do what I can. Yeah, but it's pretty crazy.
That must hurt your soul to have
It
to
does.
use a spray.
Well, the spray is so stinky. It's fine. It's just chili pepper and eggs and things. But no, it's not. It's not like an herbicide or anything. I don't do that. Even for that tree of heaven that I'm trying to dig out, I don't use an herbicide for that. I don't use an herbicide for anything. I don't do those things. I'm not, it's just for myself in my own garden. I'm never doing that.
Yeah, we found the best way to deal with the deer and the rabbits is just to have raised
Yeah.
raised pots on our balcony,
Yeah.
and that that works.
Yeah. There are places where they won't go. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, on my deck too, they don't go there as much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, my garden has been one of my biggest teachers
Yeah.
because I really, really,
Uh,
really thought something was going to go some way, and it certainly
No.
didn't. Yeah. So I'm
No.
always learning there, and I finally got to a point where I'm really accepting of the process and not the product, and that is
Yeah.
definitely a big part of my
Yeah.
practices is not about expecting a certain outcome, not even, yes, having some general goals, but as soon as you get attached to any ideas or outcomes, you
Yeah.
will be disappointed, and it will lead you astray.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that sounds very much like we're leading into some words of wisdom that you can leave the
Oh.
audience with,
Oh God.
because that was one of them.
That was one of
You
it. Can we
know,
just make that it?
don't get attached to outcomes.
Don't get attached to
It's all about
outcomes.
the process.
It is all about the process.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this because I knew you were going to ask me this question, Bob, and I don't really feel equipped, being so young and new.
Okay.
But I did think of something.
Well, we can say they're just words.
They're
not
just
words of
words, right?
wisdom, They're just words that I'd like to leave you with. How's that?
It's interesting. As a Feldenkrais teacher, one of the things I'm really working with and learning is that I don't have the answers. And I have some answers for me, but for other people, only you know. And I think that that's my words of wisdom, is that only you know what's right for you. And that's part of the practice of not projecting, non-judgment, like only you know what's right for you. And it's hard to accept that because we look outside ourselves all the time for the answers. I want an answer. But the answers are all within.
Yeah, they're all there.
Yeah.
So that's a very good thing to leave the audience with. Audience, if you have any questions, you also have the answers. Just know that they're inside of you right now. And all you have to do is go inside and ask the question.
It's beautiful. That's
Thank
true.
you so much for being here and sharing your energy. It would be nice to interview it in another 40 years, but I don't know that I'll last that long. But anyway, your journey is an interesting one, and I just loved your energy. So audience, as always, just take what resonates with you and put the rest on a shelf and pull it down when you're ready to hear it. Until next time, this has been your spiritual journey.